Today on the DML News Podcast, ISIS is in America thanks to Joe Biden, and we don't know where they are. Plus, Trump says Biden's going to be on drugs, no doubt. The DNC is going deep into lawfare. Wait until you hear the numbers. And fentanyl. You may not think it's a big deal because you don't do drugs. Oh, you wait. We've got a lot coming through the country, a lot more than you ever realized. We've got these stories and more, so get ready because it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Across from me is my son, Denny, and my younger son, Ryan, is back on the controls. We have a great show for you today, but before we jump in, especially for those people who are listening today on Facebook and on YouTube, please heed this warning. I only do these shows once in a while on these networks, so this way I can promote to get you over onto Team DML. TeamDML.com if you're using a computer, or the Interact tab if you are using the DML News app, which you could download for free from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. This program right here that we do every single day, and then we do programs on the weekend, can only be viewed on TeamDML.com because a lot of the topics that we talk about do not permit themselves to go into the lane that the social media companies like to drive. That's right. They don't want us talking about certain things. I'd like to talk today about a whole transgender thing that happened in Denver, but I can't because if I get into it, they will cut me down. So here's what we're doing. It's a special running for 45 days. We've got so many people coming in on it. Typically, a membership to Team DML is $200 a year, and it's well worth it. You get so many different things. I'm not going to bog you down with it now. You can go check it out for yourself. We are now giving it for $18 for an entire year. From now till July 31st, you could sign up. You get it for a full year. So many different things you get. I'm losing money on it, but I want you to come in because it's an election year and we need to be together and you need to be informed. So please, teamdml.com or download the DML News app, go to the fifth tab, which is called Interact, and you could sign up from there. $18, $1.50 a freaking month. You could hand in Coke cans that you shouldn't be drinking and be able to pay for it. Also, want to say that the last few days of the BOGO, the DML CBD BOGO, is happening now. It ends on Sunday, June 30. Go to dmlcbd.com/BOGO. And then, of course, you always want to make sure that you get the Great American Newsletter at greatamericannewsletter.com. The other thing I want to mention about the Team DML membership is tomorrow night on the debate, we will be live here during the debate doing a live feed with Team DML members. So it's something you want to check out for sure. Dennis, talking about the Great American Newsletter, we are going to start off right now with a video out of NBC News that just shocked me last night. Well, not really. I knew this was coming. Ryan, play the video.
Tonight, NBC News has learned more than 50 migrants with potential ties to an ISIS-affiliated smuggling network are at large in America. Many illegally crossed the border and were released into the U.S. by Border Patrol because there was no information suggesting terror ties at the time. Now their whereabouts are unknown as immigration agents look to arrest them, U.S. officials tell us, saying they're among a group of over 400 migrants DHS identified in the U.S. from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Moldova, Kyrgyzstan, Georgia, and Russia as subjects of concern because they were brought to the U.S. by an ISIS-affiliated smuggling network.
I mean, Dennis, let me ask you a question. So we've got 400 illegal aliens coming through a ISIS human trafficking smuggling network. We know for certain we can't find 50. We found 150, but the other ones, we kind of know where they are. We just haven't gotten them yet. But don't worry, because Joe Biden and his whole team, they're on it. I mean, what does this guy say about this on Thursday night when Trump confronts him? How is he going to spin this one? We got ISIS in our backyard.
Well, he's had plenty of days to figure out the spin since he's been in Camp David, just hunkering down and sheltering. Yeah, I mean, when you look at that report, right, you got Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan. I mean, these are people that are ISIS affiliated and coming from the roughest of rough countries. So 50 just roaming around the U.S. with no whereabouts, no
250.
250. Sorry, I even said the number
50,
wrong.
we have no clue on where they are.
Or
The
where
other
they are.
200, we kind of got a sense where they are in 17 different states.
So then, if we have a sense of where they are, why aren't we even just freaking doing something about it? It's
Thank
insane.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. These illegals, this is from the report. These illegals were initially released because they were not on the government's terrorism watch list, and the connection to the ISIS smuggling network was not known at the time. DHS officials explained that the illegals entered the country without raising immediate red flags, leading to their release. That sentence right there is written by somebody who's clearly an absolute imbecile. You got somebody coming up to your border, and they're clearly of Middle Eastern descent, and that doesn't throw a red flag to you to begin with? What do you think? They're coming here to pick grapes? From you know what, they were in Chekabekistan or Klakistan or whatever the stan is, right? And they came over to the border. What do you think they did to get to the U.S. through Mexico? They went through an unbelievably high-priced trip that was well coordinated. And somebody, some Border Patrol guy's gonna sit there at DHS and be like, "Oh no, I don't see anything bad here." Well, close the effing border, man. Close the effing border. First of all, let me tell you people what they don't know, okay? We have a terror watch list. So here's what happens. If you're on that terror watch list, think about how hard it is to get on that terror watch list. You got somebody over in the CIA around the world saying, "Hey, by the way, we've got this, Mohammed from Kakistan, and we think he should be on the terror watch list because he's been writing anti-America things over here." Which, by the way, how many people do you think in the Middle East are writing things on social media or writing things in general in email that are negative about the United States? The entire country of every single last Kakistan? Every single one of them. Every single one of them. So there's no way to plug that hole. So then they get on a list. The second line of defense is if we actually tap into another country's system. So you have like the UK. The UK shares its criminal system with us. We share our criminal system with the UK. So there's a cross-reference. So you got a guy come in, and let's just say he's, I don't know, we'll call him anything. Joe from UK. Joe from UK doesn't look like your, typical Brit. All right. He's looking like somebody who came from Akarakistan and wound up saying, "Oh, I'm a UK citizen." Now we turn around, we take his information that he has and we cross it into the system. And we see that he is wanted on a murder charge, or he's got terrorist ties, or that he has committed 3 rapes and he's a felon at large. We have the ability to know that information. But when you got somebody like Kakistan that's not sharing their information with us, Iran, Russia, China, that's not sharing this information with us, when you got some guy coming across, it doesn't matter. He could be the friendliest, he could be the meanest, he could have tattoos on his face, or he could be wearing, a priest suit. You would not know the difference because he can tell you his name is Frank when his name is really Mohammed, and you won't know the difference because you got no reference in your computer. So that, to me, is a red flag right there. I don't know who you are. I can't vet you. I'm not going to let you into my country. But that's what Joe Biden is doing. That's what Joe Biden has been doing. And that's why we've got ISIS right now plotting terror attacks in this country. I guarantee it.
Yes, and we're just absolutely allowing it. There's no ambition. There's no passion. There's no just initiative or drive to want to get any of this fixed, especially from a majority of our leaders. Yesterday while I was doing the CBD packaging, I was listening to some podcasts, and I listened to, because I'm sure our audience knows, I'm a big Tucker Carlson fan, and I listened to his interview with the president of El Salvador, Bukele, and he's very well spoken and he's extremely intelligent. And he brought up about how, with all the issues in the U.S., how so much of it just doesn't make sense. For example, right, like even our infrastructure. He mentioned how the Empire State Building, when it was built in 13 months. I mean, you've worked in New York and you see that building.
Sure.
13 months. And then he brings up how we have currently a rail system in California that's been taken 10 years to get built. He even mentioned how the Freedom Tower after 9/11, you would think, like, with all that drive, right, get it built right away. It took years to get that whole thing done. So how is it that 100 years back, with less technology that we have now, we were able to put those buildings up? There was a drive, there was a, hey, let's get this going. And now it's like you're dragging your feet along, which is why when Democrats make this push of like, oh, we need all the undocumented, I'm doing the quotes if you're watching, undocumented immigrants to be here because they're the backbone of what builds this country. It's like, really? Because I don't know, everything's taking forever to get built. And if it is built, it's kind of built crappy and you got issues later down the line. So something that is completely not built is our border. And we have just allowed that to become this open sieve. And here you have the president of El Salvador, which 5 years ago had the murder capital of the Western Hemisphere, is now rated the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And yet we're supposed to be a superpower and we can't get 200 ISIS-affiliated members under control and out of the country?
Of course we could, because it goes back to what it is you were saying with the example of the Empire State Building, how it was done in 13 months, and how it is that today it would take 13 years.
Yeah.
I also want to re-emphasize something that I've talked about this on before. First of all, let me say that is a matter of will. Okay. So willpower. If you have the will to build it, you will build it, and you will build it quickly. All right. If you don't have the will to build it, then it sits there and it slacks off. And we don't have the political will in this country to secure that damn border. Now, this is not just yesteryear that we're talking about. In this state of Florida, we have a governor who wanted to be the president of the United States. Okay. We have a governor who, when we had a major, major hurricane last year, an entire expansion bridge that connects an island on the West Coast, all right, to the mainland in Florida, was wiped out. That thing was rebuilt in 17 days. 17 days. So don't tell me it can't be done. All right. You had the bridge that collapsed in Baltimore.
They brought that up in the interview.
They brought that up. Or they did, right? Yeah. That was really back up. You want to know why? Because the people of Washington, D.C., all those scum that go back and forth all the time, they needed that bridge. So it needed to be done right away. But if that bridge was to collapse somewhere in, I don't know, St. Louis.
East Palestine, Ohio.
Yeah, East Palestine, Ohio is still sitting there eating out of toxic pools, right? So we know that there is the ability here in America to do that, but we won't do it. We won't secure our border. And let me tell you what will wind up happening. There is no doubt in my mind. For years, I had to take attacks from the left. I took attacks from the right. It would be at my face. It would be written about me and everything. I remember being on MSNBC, and then basically calling me a racist because I was telling them that terror was coming through the border. And they told me, no, it wasn't. Come on. All this different stuff. Call me a quack and a whack. Well, you know what's going to happen? Exactly what I predicted almost 10, if not 11 years ago. I said, we are not going to have another 9/11 where airplanes are going into major buildings. We're going to have 9/11s where there's going to be these little tiny coordinated attacks all at the same time on the same day all around the country. I'll play the video. They speak for themselves. And you know what I was told? Oh, no, they're going to want to do something bigger, like taking down a nuclear reactor. Well, look what they just did in Israel. Look what they did in Israel. You don't think they're plotting the same thing here? Israel has been brought to its knees because of what happened on that day. Can you imagine them coordinating something here in the United States outside schools? I mean, you got to be kidding me. And Joe Biden's just allowing us to do this. What can he possibly be saying on Thursday night? What will he possibly say to where the American people and those freaking radicals on CNN will actually sit there and say, yeah, you know what? He's right. Joe's right. We are defending the border. Nothing changes in this country until a major Democrat, a top line, everybody knows their name in America Democrat, or somebody who's in the liberal news or Hollyweird winds up being the victim of one of these people or one of those gang members or one of those cartel members. Until that happens, you are not going to see a change at all. Zero.
I agree. I was possibly going to put this as a poll today. If you could choose, meaning you personally, if you could choose one or two of the moderators to actually properly moderate, one of these presidential debates, because I'm sure our audience would not want Jake Tapper or any CNN, affiliate in there because they're going to give bias to Biden. So I'm not even saying like, get in like your staunchest conservative. I'm saying someone who would actually moderate and play fair, who would you want in that role?
I don't think anybody can moderate and play fair. I don't think you can find a single person in the United States of America who is truly unbiased. I think you do it the other way. I think what you do is you take the most extreme person on the left who thinks that everything is always wrong on the right, and you take the person on the right who's highly intelligent and understands how to ask questions. So to your point, if it wasn't me, I would take Tucker Carlson on the right and take Keith Olbermann on the left and let them turn around and have the questions poked at the other person. That would be a true debate, because Olbermann is going to go at Trump and Tucker is going to go at Biden, and then you're going to be able to see how they react to those sort of things. And I think that would be the best debate you could possibly have. This one-sided coin that we've got is ridiculous. Even Fox News used to try to set up Chris Wallace as being somebody who is fair and balanced. No, he's not. Look where he is today. He's where he belongs. And CNN, he's a far leftist. Same thing with Bret Baier. Bret Baier would get up there and pretend like he's asking the honest questions. He's full of it. They're all full of it. You can't do it. If you're going to go biased, let's go full in. You get a guy on the left, you can pick whoever it is. I'll have a guy on the right, we'll pick whoever it is. And maybe we have somebody in the middle who's actually saying, hey, I'm a fact checker. Because I saw something last night that was very, very interesting. If you recall, during the debate between Obama and Mitt Romney said that Obama waited 14 days to declare Benghazi as a terror attack because he was trying to sell it on some BS storyline that it was a Muslim video that was on YouTube that struck up this, even though nobody watched it, this uprising in Benghazi. And then Barack Obama said, no, I didn't wait 14 days. And Candy CNN, right? She sat there and defended him. And it turned out to be that what Mitt Romney was saying was true. But because the moderator was pro-Obama and she was bowing to the king, the entire nation thought that Mitt Romney lied because most people aren't in the know. You can't have that sort of thing. If we had two moderators, she could have gone that. And then Tucker Carlson could have came back and said, oh, really, Candy? I've got the sound bites right here. So we don't do that sort of thing. And that's where the people of the United States are shortchanged. We're going to get to that in a second on the whole thing with the debate. I want to go over two other things that we have here on the Great American Newsletter at greatamericannewsletter.com, where you can sign up for free. You put up a poll yesterday on the DML News app, which can also be downloaded for free from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Would you support the re-implementation of the Trump travel ban? 98% of the thousands of people who voted said yes. 98%. 1% said no, 1% said no, and 1% said unsure. Okay? Let's do another thing that we did on the Great American Newsletter today, which is so important. People don't think about this. It's titled right here. If Ryan, you on me? There you go, right here. It's titled, How Long Until You're Dead? All right? Unlike most opioids, fentanyl can be lethal with just one use. It only takes 2 milligrams dose, similar to 5 to 7 grains of sand, okay? You can fit that on your little tiny pinky nail and then have a lot of nail left over, all right, to cause death for an average-sized adult. It's just not on street drugs that are laced with fentanyl. Even fake everyday medications like Tylenol and Ritalin are being made with fentanyl and sold via social media. Now, let me give you a sense for how much fentanyl from the Chinese and the cartels are coming through this country. There are two different ways that you could look at the U.S. border, the 2,000 miles that cover from basically San Diego, Tijuana, all the way through down to Mission, Texas, okay? 2,000 miles, remember that. You've got two different types of entry. You've got port of entries, where people come in and out showing their identification, and they could come in. Sometimes they're day workers, they're coming on a visa for work or whatever it may be, or a vacation, la-di-da-di-da-di, transporting things back and forth for, commerce. And then, of course, the illegal entries, people who just come through for whatever reason being. Okay, whether they're apprehended by the Border Patrol or they're gotaways is left to be unknown and unseen. In just one point of entry, which is legal entry into the United States of America, in just less than a month, here are the amount of fentanyl pills we have taken. I'm not going to go through the days. It starts on 5/31 and it ends on 6/24, which is June 24, okay? Here are the days. 112,000, 30,000, 277,000, 414,000, 513,000, 596,000, 20,000, and 110,000. All those numbers that I just read represent one single day at one point of entry. Total is 2,076,255 fentanyl pills, enough to kill the entire United States multiple times over, plus 604 pounds of meth, 6 pounds of heroin, 6 pounds of cocaine, 12 loads, all deep concealment methods. That's the ones we're catching. That's the ones we're catching. What is Joe Biden doing? On top of that, listen to this one. Sanctuary State Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, all right, is sending her staff to the Texas border. Do you want to know why? This trip is an important opportunity to meet with families arriving in the United States and the organizations that work with them at the border to make sure they have accurate information about the lack of shelter space in Massachusetts. It is essential that we get the word out that our shelters are full so that families can plan accordingly to make sure they have a safe place to go. So in other words, the governor of Massachusetts is sending her staff to sit at the border and tell people, don't come to Massachusetts.
After what? She just went months saying, oh, we're a welcoming state. I think even Massachusetts was part of that program of asking. Yes, it was. We did this back in the winter. They were asking Massachusetts residents to house migrants, asking them to do a program. Yeah. So now,
Dennis, do you remember the one woman they did a news spot on her? It was a white woman, typical white Democrat out of Massachusetts. You know what they look like. It's an Elizabeth Warren wannabe. She's there and she blatantly says, yeah, I let this woman come in and live with me. She was I don't know if she was a Latino woman of some kind, and it's great because she does great housework and she's a great chef.
Talk about
having a slave.
Yeah, I remember that video totally. I think they were Haitians or something. They totally did a 180 on this. They went from, because I also remember too. This is also Massachusetts because we do this so often. They were doing. There's a place in Massachusetts a little bit outside of Boston. I think it's called Seaport. And it's a nice, more affluent area. And they were taking some of the newer, nicer buildings like hotels and starting to try and convert them to migrant centers, not telling the public. And then when they had a public meeting, everyone gave it to them. Who voted on this? This is supposed to be informative to us. And instead you're making these unilateral decisions, not consulting us because we would tell you. Hell no. And now here she is sending her staff to say, don't come to us.
Let me add insult to injury. There is a law in Massachusetts that these migrants have to have a sink and a refrigerator. So when they're sending them to these hotels, they don't have that equipped.
Right.
So they're actually breaking the law by holding people who broke the law. Okay. So they were signing up multi-million deals with noodle companies to supply food to these people. I mean, this country is going to go absolutely broke on people that have no right being here. Look what we just discussed the other day about in California, in LA. They just built a homeless shelter, right? $600,000 per apartment. So imagine a condominium complex, and it has all these different little places for you to live. So instead of having the little tiny houses that you and I covered in our film, United States of Tents, which wound up being one of the top films on Amazon Prime for about a year and a half. It's still up there now. I mean, we discussed these little tiny communities where they build these little homes, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. We've got enough living space. It's like an apartment. Now they're making apartments in LA, $600,000 per apartment for the homeless. I guarantee you, Dennis, I would bet every hair on my head that if you went into that LA condominium homeless shelter, that 90% of the people living in there are illegal aliens. I guarantee it. And the people of this country are so fed up with this. I can't wait to see what Joe Biden tries to do in defending this. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how CNN tries to let him off the hook and shuts down Trump's microphone, because it's going to happen tenfold over. All right. Joe Biden is probably going to be on Adderall, an amphetamine of some kind. Trump's been warning about it. You know this. You just wrote about it in the Great American Newsletter.
Totally. If anything, I definitely expect that this, if I had to do predictions, right, I think this is going to be the most one-sided biased debate in terms of the moderators' actions that we'll ever see, because they're going to have to do a lot of running cover to, one, stop Trump from just beating the absolute hell out of Biden, because Trump's going to come with, I mean, Trump's good at a lot of different things. There are things he's bad at. He's good at a lot of different things. And then there are things he's absolutely great at. When he is at a podium, whether it's at a rally or during the debates like we saw in 2016, he's just a killer. Like, he's literally a killer. We saw it when he was going through the primaries. I mean, he wiped the floor with Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. Liberal media will always try to say Hillary one-upped him during the presidential debates. So not true. He totally held his ground. And then personally, too, when he did 2020, I think he was wiping the floor with Biden then. So now
he had one bad debate with Biden.
Yeah, maybe one, but even still, like, one out of the hundreds of debates and rallies that he has where, like, that's his thing. And yet that is complete opposite of Biden. He can't do rallies. He can't do events. He can't hold the podium for longer than 10 minutes without the gaffes and the issues and the misspeakings coming out. So, I mean, even with all these rules, I think it's going to be challenging for Biden to really even hold his ground. But definitely watch Jake Tapper and Dana Bash try to run a lot of cover for him. And then also maybe even play on his side by asking those jaded questions, kind of like what we reported yesterday with, like, how the reporters can always ask the questions with a certain dagger placed in them to Trump. But then with Biden, it'll be nice little softball questions.
Your mother and I were talking about this last night. She said, I don't understand why Trump agreed to do this. And I said, I think it's brilliant that he did it. And then we were going over that there was a news report that when Trump actually invited Biden to do it, they didn't think he was going to say yes. And then they said yes. Then he set up all the rules to do it, and the rules all favor him. I mean, just sitting down alone, because he can't take the withstanding for an hour or two.
They're sitting?
They're sitting. They're sitting at desks. So, and then of course you've got the microphones being turned off. Now, see, here's why those microphones are being turned off. Because two things, and now I don't know, I've never done a drug in my life, but I've been around enough people with drugs. So number one is Biden, if he didn't have Adderall or some kind of amphetamine like he had at the State of the Union. See, the State of the Union was a one-way street. It was just him speaking. Nobody's going to interrupt him. If anything, they're going to clap for him. So all he has to focus on is just reading that teleprompter. And remember how angry he was, whatever. So, that's one of the things with amphetamines. You could get worked up and you're going to get angry, like that. You're all fired up. Now what winds up happening is, let's take no drugs in Joe. No drugs in him. When you have the sort of dementia-like personalities that he has going on right now, and somebody throws you off your game. So you're talking about, let's say, the border. And then out of nowhere, Trump just interrupts him and says, you know what you've never done? You've never said Laken Riley's name. You've never said her name one time. Can you even name the woman who's just killed in Maryland, the one who had five children who is dead? Can you name that even? Can you say what her name is? Now, what happens is that because he has a hard time just focusing to begin with, and his brain on the level of dementia just flips, he will completely forget what the hell he was talking about. And so now all of a sudden America sees the deer in headlight and they're like, holy cow, he's really bad. So that's the one reason why the microphones are turned off. Okay. This is not out of respect and that we have a good cordial debate. The second thing is, if he is on the amphetamines, if he is on the Adderall and he is all like wired up and he's able to do it, whatever, then Trump says the same thing to him. What happens is Joe gets angry and mean. And he starts saying things that looks like he's mean and he's angry. They don't want that narrative. They don't want that optic. So therefore, you take away the microphone. Now, the danger in that is that when Trump starts to go back at him, if Trump starts saying something that CNN doesn't like, they're gonna cut in. Mr. President, that's not the focus of the question. Mr. President, that's not the focus of the question. Or Mr. Former President, Mr. Trump, that's not the. And so I think what Trump has to do, and this would be the most epic move politically of all time. If Trump starts getting his balls kicked because they won't let him perform and answer correctly, and it is clearly a one-way channel for Joe Biden, here's what Trump says. This is what I would do. This is what I would do, hand down. People at home, you've been watching this. You see this. If you think that this is what's called a fair debate, well, then you probably think I should be in prison for basically assigning a check to my lawyer as a legal expense. I would urge you to take a look at what you saw here tonight. Does he look like tonight like he looks every other day? Something sound weird to you? See strange to you? I can no longer perform in this whole thing. You want to vote for Donald J. Trump? You're going to get your America back. You want to vote for this guy right here? You could basically kiss everything that you know and love goodbye. Good night. And I take the thing off my collar, I put it down, and I go like this, and I walk off stage. That would be epic. Epic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to do that.
I wish he would. I would do it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think as obvious as it is that he's the more coherent candidate, and he is doing well in most polls anyways, I think there is that part of him that does want to use this chance to, because you're right, takes off the mic, leaves everything, but then there's also the power of showcase how crazed out Biden's going to be for the next 60 minutes, especially towards the end when he always kind of gets a little tapered out and a little tired out. But look, either way, I think ultimately, either way, whether he took his mic out and ended early or held all the way to the end to really show that Biden can't even last more than 60 minutes in a talking aspect. I mean, I didn't even realize they were sitting for it. That's just goes to show. But I think I have because as we're talking about it, like the question's forming in my mind. I know we always somewhat talk about it, but if this man is so, let's just say it, right, like dementia ridden, old, can't function from the day-to-day basis, constantly making the mistakes, has to go to Camp David for a whole week to try and get ready for a 60 90 minute ordeal. Like, why at this point? I feel like it would be less trouble if months back, weeks back, even at this rate, to just have Biden convinced of stepping down because, could just say illness, could say this. I'm sure Kamala would be fine in her VP position anyways. And then finding a replacement that would excite the Democrat base, because clearly there's lacklusterness. Is it a sense of Biden's resistant, Kamala's resistant, there's a grand plan and they want to keep him as the puppet? But if people aren't buying into the puppet, it's going to be a harder magic act to pull off with, claiming that he'll win in 2020 if he does. Like, why is it that there's just been a resistance to get a different person in there?
Okay, so because you're my son, I'm going to give you a pass because I know this weekend that you and Ryan went out and celebrated his birthday.
I know you wrote about it.
I just wrote an entire op-ed about your question. People can find it on DennisMichaelLynch.com. It's the last one. Every Saturday I write an op-ed. The reason why Joe Biden is in that office today is only because of one person and one man, and that is Barack Obama. I truly believe what you're going to wind up seeing, and I could be way off kilter here, I don't know, but it's in my gut. You have a guy like Joe Biden who can't operate. Physically, he can't. Mentally, he can't. Verbally, he can't. Everybody in this nation knows it, including the media. But you got very intelligent people like, I'll say, George Clooney. Now, when I say intelligent, I don't mean politically intelligent. Politically, he's a freaking train wreck. But I mean, this is a guy who has to be able to read lines. And, he's an educated dude, all right? He's not like some one of these blue-haired, 10 freaking different earrings in his eyebrow, can't put together a sentence. And he's pretending like Joe Biden's okay. They're all pretending. And that's because that's what Barack Obama wants. I truly believe Barack Obama feels that Donald Trump will go into this debate and blow up Joe Biden. I think Obama wants it to happen because the Democrats can't take Joe down. If they take Joe down and Joe out, in other words, they're saying, you've done a terrible job. You have taken everything that we told you to do and you've done it. So it's a terrible job and you're no good anymore. We're pulling you out. That's a bad optic. People aren't going to want that. They're going to want something else. So what he does is he says, look, this guy's going to fall on his own sword. We are running the country anyway. Let Trump push him onto the sword. That's how it's going to fall. When he has to come out, because clearly he can't do it anymore, Kamala Harris is going to be the person. And I told you this the other day. Obama wants Kamala Harris. Why? Because if you get Gavin Newsom is his own man. He's his own head. He ain't going to listen to Obama. Gavin Newsom thinks he's better than Obama. And you know what? He probably is, or he's right there as cunning and dangerous as he can. Look what he does to California, and he gets away with it. It's insane. So what will wind up happening is that Obama gets pushed out. He's out if he's got somebody like Gavin Newsom who's intelligent and smart and doesn't need Obama. He's better looking. He's more charismatic, right? He's also more dangerous. You keep Kamala Harris because when you've got nitwit status, Joe Biden's right here. You know who his equivalent is as a woman, but without the dementia? Is Kamala Harris. Plus, who knows what Obama has on her, because her reputation for the entire time she's been in the Senate, and then she was the AG of California, is that who knows how she got to the top. Maybe he knows what he needs to know. He's the former president of the United States. He knows everything. So what happens is if you're Barack Obama and you want to run that White House without actually having to go to work because your wife doesn't want to be anywhere near that White House, and you want the power that Obama wields around the world, you've got Joe Biden, who you control, and then you got Kamala Harris, who you can control. That's who I believe is pulling the strings, which is Obama. And that's why it is that Joe is doing what he's doing and getting on that stage. Because anybody that would allow him to go on there is basically saying we're going to show the world that Joe is incapable.
Right, but even so, with Kamala, when you look at public perspective of her, she's even almost more unliked.
They don't give a rat's ass.
So why wouldn't he just take Michelle and put her in there?
Michelle wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but even so, like even if she didn't want anything to do with it, it gives
the answer to your question is you're not married yet. Happy wife, happy life. There is absolutely no way Michelle Obama wants to be back in the White House, and neither does Barack Obama. He just wants to work the country and manage the country from doing his thing. He's flying around with George Clooney on yachts in the French Riviera, and he's going here and he's going there. He's getting $1 million a speech, and she's going and getting $1 million from Netflix. They're loaded, man. They're a celebrity now at this point. I mean, they are one of the top celebrities in the United States, and they're not even in a movie. Although, you know what? They make movies now for Netflix. You think she wants to go back in and deal with the kind of crap that has to happen when you're president of the United States? No. They want the benefits of the White House. They want the benefits of the presidency without actually having to go to work. So they figured it out. We work smarter. And that's what Obama's doing. He's staying in control. He's fundamentally transforming this country. He's got to get the most radical people in there who can be controlled, who can't think for themselves, and who have something really bad on them. So I think Obama's got the worst information. Look, we are giving money to Ukraine every single week because Ukraine has something on Joe Biden.
I think Biden and a lot.
And a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Obama's got that same information. Okay? And so Obama is going to basically hold, and he's not going to do it directly. He's going to do it through proxy. And Kamala Harris is probably sitting there in the same bucket. And he just says, how great of a narrative. I got my first woman of color who's going to be the first president of the United States. I'm in tight with her. I'm the one who told Joe to pick her, and I'm going to have everything I need to have to control the country or to at least influence it. That's how I think this whole thing unfolds. I don't think I'm wrong on it. The other thing I think I'm dead right on, just to change topics here for a second, and then we'll end it. Trump said that his VP pick has already been picked. And he said that the vice president that he's going to pick is going to be at the debate. So far, there's 3 confirmed people at that debate. Vivek Ramaswamy, who I don't think he's going to pick. There's lots of reasons why he won't. Number 2 is Governor Burgum.
Mm-hmm.
And number 3 is Ben Carson.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I told you Ben Carson's going to be his pick.
So those 3 are confirmed.
Those 3 are confirmed as of last night. They're all confirmed that they have all confirmed that they are indeed going to the debate, and that he may actually announce at the debate who he's going to pick. And I think he's going to pick Ben Carson, hands down, because he won't pick Ramaswamy because Vivek is a very, very outspoken person, very articulate, gaining a lot of popularity. Trump doesn't want anybody who's going to sound sharper than he is or who's going to get any of the fanfare. Vivek is going to probably be in the administration at some point, but not at that level. Doug Burgum, at the end of the day, Trump doesn't want somebody who wants to be him. Doug Burgum wants to be Trump. He ain't going to be him. Nice guy, probably smart, multi-gazillionaire. He'll be somewhere as well. Ben Carson brings the black vote. Ben Carson brings a level of sanity and peace to an otherwise sometimes chaotic White House. Ben Carson will basically do anything for Trump. He is a loyal man. He's a man of God. He checks off every single damn box you can. And Trump has already worked with him and knows that he can trust him. And Trump said something going back in an interview about 2-3 weeks ago that struck for me. He's picking Carson, thank God. He said, I'm going to probably go with the guy who gave me a run for my money. The only person who gave him a run for his money in 2016 was Ben Carson.
That's true.
And by the way, full disclosure, I did debate prep for Ben Carson, and I did consulting for him when he was running for president. Even though he knew I was a Trump supporter, he still wanted me in there. And I asked him, I said, the whole time he was riding right on the coattails of Trump, right on the coattails. It was the only person who ever gave him a battle. And I said, what's your plan here? And he said, well, I think he's going to burn out. And I said, nah, he's not going to burn out. No way. And he said, I do. He goes, I think at some point he's going to piss people off to the point of where he'll fall off and I'm just going to take his wind. And Ben was wrong. I told him it's never going to happen. He was wrong. But you know what? He stayed loyal. He never slammed Trump in a way that was disparaging like Marco Rubio did or Cruz did or Jeb Bush did. And I think Trump appreciated that. He gave him a job in the White House on his team. We don't know what goes on every single day, but I bet you there was a nice connection between the two of them. So to that extent, he's going to want to pick somebody he can trust. And I think at the end of the day, he knows he can trust Ben Carson. That's my 2 cents.
I mean, I think that would be a fantastic choice. And, it's funny because you're right. Like, he was wrong. But in a way, maybe there was a certain point of where he was right because Trump did become the populist candidate. So those that were Romney and Paul Ryan Republicans, even still to this day, aren't Trump guys. But when it comes to the American people, I mean, I think a majority at this point, I believe it in my chest, that they want Trump over someone like Biden. So then when you look at those two VP matchups, a Kamala Harris, who's very unliked and most people believe unelectable, and she did not give Biden a run for his money in the Democrat primaries. But then you got Ben Carson, and I think a nail in the coffin here is that, mostly liberals, obviously, but a lot of those on the left will always try to tag Trump with that racist label, even still to this day. And I feel like year after year, it dies a little bit more, especially when you get a video like in Chick-fil-A and he comes in and it's predominantly black workers and they're there. But he chooses a successful black man as his VP. I mean, I don't know how more far you could spin it.
Don't forget what it is that Ben Carson did as well when he was a president, when he was in the president's cabinet. Mm-hmm. He was HUD.
Yes.
Okay. So he focused in on, housing and urban development. So he's going to be able to tout what he did for black communities. And I think Trump looks at the numbers and says, not only do I need minorities to win, but I got them right now. And if I show them that this isn't just going to be the white man's White House, that we're going to have a guy in there who really is going to understand what you go through, because Ben Carson was indeed a poverty-ridden child without a father who worked his way up by reading books and boom, becomes one of the top neurosurgeons of all time. So he is a beacon to look to, and he is a man of God, and nobody ever says anything bad about Ben Carson. So to that extent, he's got experience in Washington, D.C. He knows how the inner workings go. Somebody like J.D. Vance doesn't. He's a newbie. J.D. Vance will have his day.
Right.
But right now, you need this seasoned leadership, and I think that's where it goes.
I think that's the point, because a J.D. or even a Vivek, I think as soon as they're picked, they're just going to have their eyes on 2028.
That's all it is.
It's going to be like, oh, how do I take it to the next step when I'm in that position? Whereas Ben Carson will not have that whatsoever. It's going to be, how do I make the 4 years that my president previously lost in very suspicious ways? How do I make it so that he could get these 4 years back and just be a solid VP right next to him?
There becomes a part in your life I'm entering it right now. There becomes a part in your life when it's no longer about making money or what your accomplishments are, or whatever it may be. It's about setting up a legacy. It's about setting up that what you leave behind is going to be something that is worthy for everyone. And that when they do look back, not that you need the credit, but when they do look back, they say, hey man, that guy is why we're here today. Right? So for somebody like me, I look at it and I say, hey, I got to make sure I set my kids up. Got to make sure everything, I want my family nice and tight. Somebody like Ben Carson at this point in his life is going to say, I love America and I want to do everything I possibly can. If it's just 4 years, because he's 72 himself, if it's just the 4 years, I want to do everything I possibly can to get this country back on track so conservatism is planted in gold and we could have this for the next 8, 12, 16 years. So I think that's where he is versus what you just said, which is spot on. And that's not a slam on Vivek or on JD Vance or anybody. Look, you put me in there. If he would have come to me and say, DML, I want you to be my VP, you know the first thing I'd think to myself is, 2028, baby, if I could win that one, because I've got that youth in me, right? I've got that whole thing in me. I think that's why Ben Carson would be the good pick. But at this point, we're just guessing and throwing things against the wall. I just thought that would be an interesting thing to say. I had another topic on here I wanted to talk about, but we ran too long. So listen, very important. Tomorrow, we will not have a program during the morning like we usually do. We're going to have a program at night. We're going to be right here live, probably a bottle of wine or maybe a bottle of scotch, watching with you the CNN debate and talking about it. Team DML will be live chatting with you. It will be live, right? So we're going to be able to answer your questions, take questions on there, whatever, go back and forth. We'll be quiet when it's time to be quiet. We can watch it together and we'll have a lot of fun. If you are not Team DML, please consider doing so. Go to teamdml.com, sign up for only $18 for the entire year. Join a family of thousands of people who are all like-minded. We have a great time at Team DML, and that is that. All right? So until the next time, which will be tomorrow night, God willing, God bless you, your family, and these United States.
And I'd like to give today's Team DML blessing to BlueFans57. She wished me a congratulations on the Panthers winning the Stanley Cup, which was pretty awesome. So,
all right. Sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.